if you want to know the answer to a question like that. Amendment to Smoke-Free Public Places Policy. We had a deputation on that this morning. Good morning. This hasn't been through a committee, so is there anyone who would like to move this? Andrew, seconded by Mike. Are there any questions? Sam?
Yeah, just a practical question. I'm just trying to understand. So there was a list of where it would apply. And I'm just thinking, like, somewhere like the terrace, for argument's sake, which is, across the road late at night and things like that, when there's people congregating on the street, would that mean they couldn't vape there, out front?
Oh, no.
It's part of the park area.
Is there anything?
We discourage them to vape if the change of policy will be approved by the council.
Microphone. Sorry, can you press your microphone?
Oh, sorry, you just press the button there. Yeah.
Just press the button. Again.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, at present, if that terrace is part of the park, which is part of the park really, they are only discouraged not to smoke. The vaping is not yet being discouraged because we have not included that vaping into our policy at the moment.
Can I just clarify? All of the no smoking in parks, etc. It's on a voluntary social pressure. Yeah. It's no bylaw to ban it or anything. So it's just to clarify that. Yeah, that's
There's no material enforcement of the policy, so there's not no smoking, no vaping police that go around on the terrace late at night or anywhere.
Right. So what's the point in it then?
Well, it's actually worked really well in our
sorry,
sports.
I was asking.
Yeah. So Evangeline can probably talk about the background, which I think is important if we're going to go back to the fundamentals like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. So I've got Aaron and Pauline. Aaron, I said, and Pauline.
Yeah, so just on number 4 in the recommendations, and I asked the question at our pre-meeting, but request staff investigate extending the policy to other public places, including the central city pedestrian mall areas, beaches, and open car park areas, and report back to the appropriate committee in 2021. But I was told that it's already we already have a smoking ban at beaches this morning. Do we or don't we? Because why are we investigating it if we do?
The beaches are not part of the smoke-free policy areas and smoke-free areas for the current policy.
So you're allowed to smoke at the beach at the moment?
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't. I mean, people shouldn't smoke anywhere, but for their own health. But you're allowed to under our policy.
Yeah, because it's not a smoke-free area that the council designated.
Right. Okay. But all of these others. So, where would you be allowed to smoke? So at your own place and just a regular street.
Again, our policy is voluntary.
Yeah.
It was meant to change behavior, and it means to encourage healthy lifestyle. So we don't ban smoking, but we encourage people not to smoke in our smoke-free areas.
Thank you.
So, sorry, Pauline.
Yeah. So my question was also on number 4. So what would the investigation involve? Was that going out for consultation?
the proposal then was to, if the council will agree to that recommendation, then we will have discussion with our health partners, potentially for working together in terms of consulting the general public and consulting the business groups as well. So yeah, and we are planning to use more our platforms and channels in terms of engaging the public on what their views are.
Right. I'm just kind of thinking, that is there any urgency around this? Could this not wait for a couple of years, because we do have an LTP consultation coming up, and that's going to probably...
It's up, yeah, again, it's up to the council.
Yes,
to
okay,
decide.
so you don't see an urgency around that necessarily?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, sorry, I wasn't here when we adopted the last policy around this. I wasn't elected when we did. So just so I'm really clear, if we had we would have a policy in place that we don't enforce and is voluntary.
Yeah.
So even somewhere on, and I sorry to harp back to somewhere like the terrace, I'm just thinking of people in the evenings and stuff. So we wouldn't, so they could continue to vape outside, but we wouldn't do anything about it if someone complained, or if they did, where would we send them?
Normally what other people...
No, I mean send them to actually vape. It's a legitimate. It just doesn't make sense that we'd put in a policy that.
Yeah, people, I mean, if you see people smoking or vaping, if it's a smoke-free or vape-free areas, then you can always say, you know, ask them not to smoke or not to vape, because this is a designated smoke-free and vape-free areas. I mean, it's really...
Okay. Okay.
So has the existing policy been an effective tool in terms of reduction of smoking in our parks and various places, especially sports ground and the places where we put up the smoke-free signs?
I cannot personally, I mean, for the policy team, maybe we can I? It's just that we are not into implementing. Our team is not implementing it, but I heard from the parks, if there are signage around parks, they always respect that. And also if our staff will say that if you can, you know, tell them that if you can refrain from smoking in this area, then they do as well. And there are also effective success stories from our workplace. So yeah.
A map on 275, a graph that shows a really big reduction. Yeah.
The council initiatives, smoke-free initiatives, is just part of the whole Christchurch. You know, we are not the only one implementing smoke-free policy, but others too.
All right. So so the extension is to the to the existing policy for smoke-free for vaping. And then requests extending the policy to other public areas. But in terms of that, in terms of the approach, the question is there a need to report back to the committee in 2021? I mean, in terms of priority of work, I think that was the question you were asking, as to whether we should be prioritising this right now.
Burden, well, the effort people have to make with another consultation at this time.
We do have a lot of consultations going on at the moment.
This is an indication I won't be supporting 4, but I'll support the rest of it. You could do a consider
I just wonder whether that could be, because I am looking for a way to kind of keep it in play, because we do have other partners. We heard a deputation this morning from both the Cancer Society and from the DHB, from the Public Health Unit, and I kind of would like at least them to be given some opportunity to kind of link in with our team in relation to seeking whether there's ways of resolving this, because the process seems to work very well at the moment. It doesn't create an enormous burden on enforcement for obvious reasons, but it does give the public the tool to kind of manage what is a good outcome. Social pressure. I'm happy to put that one separately, but I'm just wondering whether we could agree to some reviewed wording that might address that. Tim.
Thank you. Look, and it is an oddity, and I totally get what Sam's kind of going with regards to the terrace area, because it's very different at a terrace area and the terrace and with bars, etc., and a sports ground where you've got families in parks, which are kind of peer pressure. So I'm just wondering if the complete part of 4 is a step too far, and that we look at including only the beaches and car park areas rather than the city mall areas, because at the beach you can get the same pressure as you do from sports fields, etc. But and car parks associated with it, you may be able to. But I do think maybe it's steps, and it's not logical at all. But it's just wondering, would that be?
I know. I mean, the thing is that I wasn't aware that this was.
No.
Was a specific issue, and I had misunderstood the content of the paper. So I was of the view that we were extending vaping to these other areas as well. I'm also extremely aware of the pressure that the organisation is putting on the public in terms of all of the consultations that are going on at the moment. So that's...
No. 2021 is a long year.
Yeah.
Post June.
But anyway, look, I'm open. I've got a mover and a seconder. So I guess I'll just open it up for debate. If somebody would like to move an amendment to it, well, then that might solve the problem. But otherwise, I'll take the debate. So, does anyone have an amendment to it, or? We'll make sure that number 4 is voted on separately then.
Yeah.
Andrew.
Thank you. I've got a particular interest in this, in as much as I was close to this work in the CHED committee in the 2013 term of council. It's important to note, and it's been drawn out in questions, that the policy is voluntary and it only applies to certain areas. But it's also important to note that it does work. Bus stops, parks, sports fields probably would be the best examples of where it works. And outside our libraries and in some other areas, it discourages people to smoke in areas where the policy considers this to be inappropriate. And it's through the policy that we make it clear that smoking in those places isn't encouraged and isn't acceptable. And in my view, it's entirely appropriate that we should do that. Now, we do have other partners. They presented to us this morning, and we've worked closely with those partners in development of this policy and its amendments over many, many years, and I think it's important that that's acknowledged. So at the time that Council adopted the smoke-free policy in 2009, vaping products were practically unheard of. They've increased in popularity since then, and it's entirely appropriate that we should now extend the smoke-free policy to also be a vape-free policy. It just brings it up to date with common practice. It's fair to say that second-hand vape can create exactly the same annoyance, particularly to non-smokers, as second-hand smoke. We heard about some of the health effects of vaping this morning. It's important that those are also noted. So I think in terms of updating the policy, this is quite the right thing to do, and I think if vaping had been as popular in 2009 as it is now, the policy would have included vaping anyway. In terms of our leadership role as a council, this is an area where we have shown leadership. I would compare some of the work that Christchurch has done to the work that's been done in Melbourne and Australia, who have also taken a strong lead. And I think we should be continuing to show leadership in this space, extending the policy to include vaping and considering sooner rather than later how it can be extended as appropriate, and that's something we'll consider at that time, so that we continue to take a lead in public health, public amenity, and respect the work that we're doing with our partners.
There was somebody else here, Melanie and Pauline, Aaron, and
I'm not going to say too much. I totally support all of these recommendations. It's a no-brainer. I think for number 4, just in response to Tim, I actually thought the opposite. I thought the city mall on a Saturday, the last thing you want with your kids walking around is people smoking. And I thought the beach is a better place if people were going to be doing it because it's so big. But I think we should investigate it because that's what it says, and then we can look at it properly. So fully in support of this whole.
Pauline?
Thank you. Yeah, look, I support including vaping in the policy. I mean, I agree with Andrew, if it had been around in a big way in 2009, it would have been in. But I don't support 4. And the fact is that what we've got now is working, and I think that people are getting the message. We don't have to go around repeatedly adding everywhere that you can't do it. It's actually addressing the principle, hey guys, this is actually not a very social thing to do, not to mention the risk to your own health. So I don't support 4. I think we'll just go on and on and on identifying places if we're going to do that. Let's rely on the principle, and looking at these graphs, it is working. So at the moment, I don't think we need to actually do any more work in this area. I won't be supporting 4, but I'll support the rest of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm hugely in favour of the smoke-free policy. I think the smoke-free policy made a lot of sense and is a great example for children in public places to not be exposed to smokers or second-hand smoke. I struggle with the vaping one because vaping's been used by a lot of people to get away from smoking, and the dangers of second-hand vape are incredibly low, if not at all, depending on which report you read. Is vaping cool? To some people it is. There's certainly been an uptake by some younger people getting into vaping that had never smoked before, so there is an uptake there. But are those people just going to find a vice anyway? The irony of this is that you're allowed to take a dozen woodies down to the park and get boozed up with your mates, but you're not allowed to have a vape under this policy, which, I don't know, I'd rather people were probably vaping at the park than drinking Woodstocks. And the harm of that can be quite incredible. Just look at the police stats. I haven't heard of a call out to a vaping incident yet. Then the other one is, a few weeks ago, this country almost voted in favour of legalising the smoking of cannabis. So on one hand, you've got just under 50% of the population saying it's okay to smoke cannabis, but the council coming in saying it's not okay to vape. There's a lot of contradictions going on here. You can vote your way, Jake. We know you do that anyway. To me, this is an overreach. I'm all in favour of the smoke-free policy, not on beaches. If you're going for a lonely walk on the beach, you probably do need a cigarette. So if that's what you're into, if you're depressed, feel free to have your vices. But vaping, it's an overreach for me.
Anne?
I just think the recommendations here reinforce our role as a council leading a community to become healthy by reducing smoking prevalence and encouraging people to refrain using tobacco and vaping products. It's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned, as Mel said. I think our young people, we have to be really aware of the strength of the lobby that's really getting our young people into vaping, and we need to just stand against it. So to me, this is just adding to what we're already doing, the great work that we do in this city to create a healthy environment. We'll be supporting all of the...
Sorry, Tim and then James.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought vaping was going to be a really good alternative to cigarettes and to get the healthy choice, but then you see them putting in nicotine products into it. There's really no point to it. There's just, might as well have a cigarette. I will not be supporting 4 for the simple reason that we have put this policy, which does seem idiotic in a sense, but does work, slowly into our areas, into the sports fields, etc., and they've been incredibly successful. What I would be worried about is if we went too far and it reversed. I think to go in steps to then bring into the social fabric of our societies those families saying that it's not cool to vape around our sports and our kids, etc. Once that's established and it's seen to work, then I think it would be the next steps, whether we go into the beaches and other things. But I would be worried that we went backwards rather than forwards. So I'm going to vote, I will support everything but 4.
James?
Yeah, look, I agree that urging people to be smoke-free around the edges of sports fields and playgrounds has actually worked really well. Of course, it's voluntary, but you know what it really comes down to is a bit of common sense and common courtesy. That's been embraced, that's fine, but I also think that people's common sense does apply that to vaping too. I'm all for tackling a problem if it exists, but I don't think that the new problem is now rampant playground vaping. It's just we're trying to tackle an issue that doesn't exist, and my pet peeve is actually when council tries to involve itself in people's lives to levels that are just nonsensical, and I do feel that we're starting to get into that territory, so I won't be supporting this. I think what's happening right now is working, and by and large people possess common sense within our community. As for item 4, given that it's been put separately, I also think that makes a lot of sense, that if you want to investigate this, there's a large consultation which is occurring. It happens every 3 years and it's called the LTP. So I think that's the appropriate place for it.
Right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed, oh sorry, this is 1 to 5. Excluding 4. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. So can you put up your hands for no? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's carried. And do you want them recorded? Okay, James, Pauline, Tim, Aaron, Catherine and Sam. Yep. And I'll put 4. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. Put up your hands if you are voting yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right. Well, if I voted for it, then it makes no difference. It doesn't go forward.
Division.
Oh, okay. Just on number 4.
Councillor McClellan?
Yes.
Councillor McDonald? No. Councillor Johansson? Yes. Councillor Galloway? Yes. Councillor Daniels?
No.
Councillor Coker? Yes. Councillor Chen?
Yes.
The Mayor?
No.
Councillor Scandrett?
No.
Councillor Major?
No.
Councillor Keelan?
No.
Councillor Goff?
No.
Councillor Davidson? Yes. Councillor Cotter? No. Councillor Chu? No. Councillor Turner?
Yes.
It's 7 yeses and 9 noes.
Right, that is lost, and I will now adjourn the meeting until 2 o'clock.